economics. What is economics? Okay. So as we know that there must be a fundamental problem in any kind of society. That is we call as scarcity. Okay. Because our wants are unlimited. Wants are unlimited. There's no limit for the wants of any kind of society or any persons. But unfortunately, the resources which we can use to produce goods and services are limited. So then there must be a problem with that one. Actually, it is not a question. It must be a problem because we cannot satisfy the unlimited human wants by using limited resources. Okay, we cannot satisfy the unlimited human wants by using limited resources because resources are not enough to cover that unlimited want. That is why we have to face this common problem for each and every societies. So if you have an idea about this one, I mean wants created by the needs. Okay. As you studies in grade 11 and 10, maybe you study that components, I mean basic needs. Basic needs. We call as basic needs. Basic need mean if you are going to live in a society, what you have to utilize, but you have to use commonly as a man in the society. We call it those are basic needs. As an example, just consider foods, shelter, something like that. Those are necessaries. Those are necessaries. But to get that kind of basic needs, we can find different type of options. We can find different type of option. As example, just consider about the foods. That means you are in a hungry. You are in a hunger. Then you can use different type of options. Okay, maybe rice, maybe kottu, maybe any kind of things, any different type of things. So according to your choice, you are going to choose one option. It may be rice, it may be kottu, anything. Okay. By conceiving that, you can utilize that basic need. Basic need means food. So then you can identify what's the meaning of wants. Wants mean different type of options. Different type of option, you can utilize the basic need. Different type of options or alternatives. Different type of alternative which you can satisfy the basic needs. That is what we call as wants. Okay. Any kind of methods must be there. If you think about the transportation, you can use public transportation, private transportations, or maybe it's service driven by the railway department, service driven by the CTB, any kind taxi. There must be different type of services. Okay, according to your choice, according to your ability, you can choose one of the alternatives. So we call it wants. Okay. But unfortunately, the wants created in the mind of the consumers. Wants create in the mind of consumers. There is no limit for the wants. There is no limit for the wants. If I ask a question from you, what do you want? You can say anything. Anything. There's no limit. Okay. So then there is no limit to wants. Unfortunately, to satisfy the unlimited human wants, we don't have enough resources in the society. So then what will happen? Then we have to face that problems. That kind of problems we identify as scarcity. This is the major problem in the society. This is a major issue we are going to discuss in this particular subject. Okay. We call it central problem. Central problem means each and every questions and each and every problems arise because of that problem. If there is unlimited resources, so then nothing to hesitate, nothing to discuss, nothing to worry. We can satisfy anything. So no need to worry about anything. No need to discuss, no need to study. But the problem is common to each and every countries. We already identified two types of countries in the world. First one is developed country, second one is developing countries. Whether it's developed or underdeveloped, they have to face same question, same problem, same issue. Okay. Whether they develop or underdeveloped, they have to face scarcity. That is why we call it is central problem, central issue in any kind of society. This particular subject, I mean economics, is around this kind of central problem. We are going to understand how we can satisfy the unlimited human wants. How we can satisfy the unlimited human wants by using these limited resources. That is what we are going to study in the subject of economics. So now you can identify what's the meaning of economy. Economy always deal with that scarcity. In economic subject, we are going to study how we can satisfy unlimited human wants by using limited resources. That is what we are going to do in here. So now we can find the definitions. What's the meaning of economics? Right, always economics try to identify how satisfy, or how utilize unlimited human wants by using limited resources. That is what we are going to discuss in here as a subject. Okay. And basically, when you are going to satisfy the unlimited human wants by using limited resources, we have to discuss about three major activity in the society. First one is production. Second one is distribution. Third one is consumption. So those are the main basic activity related to the subject of economics. So if you are going to study this subject of economy, you have to discuss about production. What's the meaning of production? Process of production, distributions, and the consumption. So those are the main three components or main three activity which we are going to discuss related to the subject of economy. It is very common to each and every country and each and every component. So then that is why it say that it is study production, consumption, and the distribution. Yes, those are the things. which we are going to discuss in here. It is study, production, consumption, and distribution. In an economic system, how decide or decisions impact wealth, welfare, and societal development. We are not going to discuss only about the private activities of private entities. In here, we are going to discuss about wealth. Okay, it is personal. And also discuss about the common, government. And also we are going to discuss about welfare of the society. Related to the production, consumption, and distribution. Okay. So then, this is the component, this is the scope related to the economic subject. We are going to face this problem daily. Actually, your time is limited, isn't it? Time is limited. Within that 2 years, you have to learn or study 3 major subjects to the A-level exam, isn't it? Yes. Okay. Time is limited. Okay. Then according to that one, you have to do this one. So it also similar to this major components. Okay. The money in your hand is limited. Money in your hand, it is limited. Yes, it is. Then you have to utilize unlimited ones. Unlimited ones. Okay. So then we have to choose what kind of utilization, what kind of words I am going to utilize first of all. What is the second one? Which one is going to sacrifice for this one? So you have to take some decisions related to the consumption activities. You have to take some decision related to the production activity. You have to take some decision related to the distribution activity. All those things, all those activities, it will be a result of the decisions. Okay, then those are the things which we are going to discuss in here as economists. The major things in the economy, we are going to satisfy the unlimited human force by using limited resources. That is the major components which we are going to discuss in here as economics. Okay, in your tutorial, there's a major definition related to the economics. Did you get the tutorial?
Sorry, sir?
Did you get the tutorial?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, okay. Then you can read down that definition. What's the meaning of economics? What is economy? Economy is social science. It is not a natural science. I will describe the difference between social science and natural science. Okay, right. Social science, economics is in the bucket of social science. It's not a natural science. Something like that, chemistry, biology, zoology, it is belong to the natural sciences. But economic is a social science because we are going to study about the behavior of the society, behavior of the people, not about something like that chemistry. Okay. the economics is a social science that focus on how individual, business, and government. We are not going to discuss only about the individual decisions taken by the consumer or taken by the producer. Okay. We are going to discuss about the individual decisions, business decision, I mean institute of firms or organizational decisions, and the decision taken by the government. Okay, three major parties. First one is individual, second one business, and government. Okay, make choice among using limited resources to satisfy the unlimited human wants. We already discussed that. Related to that particular aspect, we are going to discuss about the study for production, consumption, and distribution activity in the economic system. Why we are going to discuss those things? How to improve the wealth, how to improve the societal welfare. That is what we are going to discuss in here. Okay. So then the word came from the Greek. Word create that economic subject because it is the term of economic origin from the Greek word. Okay, that means household and management. They are going to discuss about the household management. Household means the family, earned by the one person. Others are active as a dependent. We call as a household. Just consider about the one family, father, mother, and one child. Father is going to be the person who try to earn money. Other two persons are depending on that particular income. So that kind of family we can identify as household. Okay. If anyone try to manage the household, it also belongs to the economic activity. The origin of this kind of came from this components and this idea. There must be a different type of definition related to the subject of economics. Okay. All those subject definitions are different from other. One of the major definition is different from other definitions. Okay, I will describe those different definition at once with comparing to the other definitions. Okay, Adam Smith. We consider that person, I mean Adam Smith, as a father of this economic subject, or founder of the economic subject. He focused on the wealth creations and the self-interest. He's not going to discuss about the welfare of the society. He discussed about the self-interest. As an example, bakery owner, baker, earns money. He earns money on the benefit of himself, not about the society. Okay. Benefit goes to the baker. Okay. As an extra benefit, society also can take some benefit. How society can take benefit from the baker's activity? As an example, if baker try to produce cake, by selling that kind of particular cake, he can earn money. That direct benefit goes to the baker. How it will be a benefit for the society? Something like that one. If that baker produce bake, we can buy it. If there is no any bakers produce cake, how we can consume cake? We cannot consume cake. The availability of the production also will be a benefit for the society. If no one try to produce cake in this particular country, how we can consume? We cannot consume it. If no one try to produce bread in the society or in this particular country, we cannot consume the bread. So then private producer produce goods and services on behalf of their self-interest, not for the society. Yes, we know that. Any kind of producer produce goods and services on their private benefit. But as extra benefit from this particular activity, we can consume goods and services. Yes, we got money. If there is no commodity, how we can satisfy the basic needs and wants? We cannot satisfy. That is why, whether it is belong to the private sector or government sector, production is very important for any kind of society. If there is no production, we cannot consume anything. If there is no production, we cannot satisfy the basic needs and wants. That is why benefit goes to the self-interest and the society also, related to the private activity of the bakers. Baker earn money because of their production. Because of that particular production, we can consume. That benefits go to the society. That is how it happened in here. Yes, that is what we call as benefit. Okay, but in Adam Smith definition, he wrote a book namely known as Wealth of Nation. He focused on the wealth of the nations. Scottish person belonged to the British Empire. He focused on the wealth of the nations. His key idea related to the economy is how to gather wealth. How to gather wealth. How to increase the value of the wealth. This is the focus area of the Adam Smith book. I mean, Wealth of Nations book. Okay. Willingly or unwillingly, any kind of nation, if they need to develop, they have to focus on the wealth. They have to increase the wealth. They have to increase the amount of wealth. Then they can develop. That is what Adam Smith focus in their definitions. We call it wealth definitions. We call it wealth definition because this person focus on the wealth of the nation, not about the welfare of the society. Okay. But welfare definitions from the Alfred Marshall, he focused on the wealth used to improve the human welfare. Okay. Welfare means high level of living standard of the people. If you are getting societal life is easier than previous situation, then what will happen to the human welfare? It will be increased. So if you got transportation services in a lower prices, high quality transportation, if you got high quality health services from the private and government sector in a reasonable prices, if we can get other services in a reasonable prices in high quality level, so what will happen to the human welfare? It will increase. Okay. As an example, government improve the healthcare by providing different types of services. definitely it effect to create the better quality life. If we can live with the better quality life, we can say that the human welfare is there. How we can identify the developed countries? Because developed country people's welfare life is in a high level, with a high level compared to the other countries. I mean, developing countries. Okay, in that position, I mean, welfare definition, they are going to discuss about the welfare of the society. They're not going to focus on the wealth. They are going to use that wealth to improve the societal welfare. That is belong to the Alfred Marshall. That means they are going to discuss economic is the focus of the economic subject must be to improve the wealth of the society. But in scarcity definition, Lionel Robinson discuss about the society and the choice among the alternatives. Yes, we know that we are going to face that scarcity because our wants are unlimited, our resources are limited. So then already we have to face the scarcity. We have to choose the among alternative. We already discussed that. What the meaning of alternative options? Okay, students choose textbooks or workshops. Okay, if you got money, you are going to buy textbooks for the subject of economics. Many textbooks are there. Oh, we are going to workshop. You have to choose because you got limited money in your hand. Then you have to choose whether you are going to buy the textbooks or participate in the workshop. You have to choose it. So in this scarcity definition, always they are going to say that economic focus on the scarcity and choice among the alternatives. It is one of the major definitions. But in the modern definition, I mean Paul Samuelson's definition, allocate the scarce resources for societal growth. As example, government invest renewable or industry, renewable resources or industry. As example, just consider Sri Lankan government going to invest money on the solar panel or renewable energy resources, or they are going to create another industry to produce goods and services. Which one is suitable? So we have to focus on that one. We have to allocate that one. Whether we are going to use all the resources for the renewable resources, something like that solar panel, or we are going to produce goods and services. So this is the modern definitions. Okay. So no need to worry about the definitions. Okay. This definition gives us bit of a scope, bit of a idea what we are going to discuss in subject of economics. Okay, you can read all those definitions. I have given all the definitions and the examples, each and every one. As example, if you are going to discuss a final one, I mean modern definition by the Paul Samuelson 1948. Samuels defined economic as a study how society chose to use scarce resources to produce and distribute goods and services. He emphasized choice, resource allocation, and improve the societal welfare, both now and in the future. Not about the present time period, but in future time period also we have to focus the welfare. As example, the country choose whether to invest more in renewable energy or in industrial development, considering both present and future needs. If you are going to consider about the future, we have to invest on the renewable resources, isn't it? Yes. If you are not going to consider about the future, we have to invest the money on the industrial development. Yes. Industrial development can be collapsed anytime. As example, the war between USA and China is not using by the weapons. They are in a war related to the tax. Donald Trump increased tax for the China. China increased tax for the USA. Again, Donald Trump increased. Again, China increased. Again, Donald Trump increased. The war between China and USA, it is related to the tax rate. Okay, there's no any kind of rationale behind that kind of war. Yes, we know that. But it also affects to the entire world. It also affects to the entire world. If you can identify when beginning of that war between China and USA, the price of the Apple phone mobile suddenly increased. This country is situated in South Asia. The war between China and USA is another area. But finally, because of that tax war, the price of the Apple mobile increase in Sri Lankan continent. How it affect to others? No one can escape from this world. No one can escape from this kind of effects. So that is how we have to take the decisions. Okay, we cannot escape that kind of work because we are belong to the other countries. We are depending on other productions. Our production is not enough to cover the entire consumptions. We are importing goods and services from China. We are exporting goods and services for the USA. If there is war between USA and China, we have to take the negative benefit. That's the nature of the economics. So in modern definitions, we are going to discuss all those things. How it happened. It is very interesting. If you are going to discuss all those things, it is very interesting. Okay, right. And then we are going to discuss about the scope of economics. What we are going to focus in this particular subject. The scope of economic refers to broad. It is not a simple idea. Okay. Already we discussed that simply. We are going to study related to the economics production, distribution, and consumption. Actually, it is not a simple activity. Production is a process. Distribution also process. Consumption also process. So major activities are there, but it will be a network. Without production, there is no distribution. Without distribution, there is no consumption. Without production, there is no distribution and consumption also. So those are interrelated. So if you are going to discuss the subject of economy, it is not simple. It is not only one activity. It's a broad field. We are going to cover that broad field or subject. We are not going to deal with only money. We are not going to study about only money. I mean, buying and selling. We are going to discuss about each and every activities components related to the economy. What types of things we are going to study? We are going to study how we can use resources. As example, and discuss about the production, how we can find the inputs. Input means the resources which we can use as an input for the production. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Those are input, and this is process. Process means we are going to convert that input into the output. Converting input into the output. As example, final productions. It must be goods and services. Commonly we call as commodity. Commodity. Commodity is the common word for the goods and services. If I'm going to say anything related to the commodity means it represents tangible thing and intangible things. I mean, goods and services. As example, just consider about the mobile phone. It is tangible. It is belong to the physical things. We call it goods. If you are going to discuss about the service provided by the medical officer or doctor, so we call it services because it is intangible. There's no physical evidence for the services provided by the medical officer. So common word for the goods and services is commodity. Basically, we are not going to discuss about the good or only services. In subject of economics, we are going to discuss about commodity. It is common word for the society. Okay, but it is basic things. So then we are going to discuss something like that. Okay, how resources are used, how we can use those resources to satisfy the basic needs and unlimited human needs. Those are the scope. Those are the things we are going to discuss here. Goods are produced, income distributed. Okay, as an example, so just consider about the baker produce cake. Okay, then they have to find the inputs. So what are the inputs for the cakes? Okay, flour, water, and many kind of ingredients, coloring, butter, eggs. So those are the inputs. And we are going to process that one. Process means we are going to mix all those things and bake. Finally, you can get the output. Output means cake. This one can be consumed because output can be consumed. That is why we can sell that cake. This is the area. This is the focus. You are going to use that resources to produce goods and services. So then, if you are running this kind of bakery, you have to pay for the resources. Okay, if you buy that flour from the outside, you have to pay. How you can pay? To earn money by selling that cake. Okay, because consumer buy that cake and money came from this side to the bakers as income. Okay, so then that income we have to use to pay for the owner of the plant. Okay, owner or laborers also who provide mental and physical effort for the production, we have to pay. We have to pay. This one goes to the income of the workers who work in this particular bakery. The income distribution will be developed by using that kind of activities. Goods are consumed. After purchasing, by the consumer, they can consume to satisfy the hunger. So those are the activities we are going to scope, we are going to study in this particular subject. So in this particular time period also, we are going to discuss production. We are going to discuss distribution. We are going to discuss about consumption. So those are the main activities which we are going to discuss in the subject of economics, right? We are going to focus on this one. So then now already we identified three major things we are going to discuss in here. First one is production, second one is distribution, third one is consumption. So those are the main three activities which we are going to discuss in related to the subject of economics. So now we are going to identify thoroughly what's the meaning of production. Okay. What's the meaning of distribution? What's the meaning of consumption? We have to identify those things. Okay. Right. Is there any problem? Did you identify or understand what we are going to do?
Sorry, sir.
Did you understand what I'm going to say that? Did you identify all the things I already discussed?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
If
sir.
any kind of problems, you can ask, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right. Now we are going to discuss about production. Okay. That production means we are going to create goods and services. The common word for the goods and services is commodity. Commodity. Common word for the goods and services is commodity. So what do you mean by the production? Production refers the process of using resources. Resources mean input. We are going to consider that all kind of resources as input to create the goods and services. Goods and services refers as output that satisfy the human wants. Basically, we know that human wants are unlimited, but we have to satisfy the human wants by consuming the goods and services, by consuming the output of the production process. Okay. In economics, we are going to study related to that process. Actually, production is a process. Process means collection of the activity. Collection of the bulk of activities. Collection of the activities we call as process. Okay, process. There's no one activity. There must be few activities or more activities. That is why we call it as process. Okay. So what kind of process are there? What kind of activities are there? First one is input. You have to find inputs, gather the production resources. To convert, we call it process. Okay. Changing activity, we're going to use that word process. And we can finally get the output. We call it output. Okay. Input, process, and output. So those are the main three activities we are going to use to produce goods and services. Okay. During this activity, I think you have given an example in your tutorial, page number 2. There's an example for the production. What is? A farmer used land, seeds, labor, and machineries to grow vegetable. So this is one of the major activity which we call as production. It is belong to the agriculture production. After production, that will later will be sold in the local market. So just consider about the paddy production in the Sri Lankan continent. They are going to use land, seeds, labor, and machineries and water to grow up the paddy. And after getting harvesting, they can sell it in the local market. So this is one of the major production activity we can identify in the society in this particular economy. So input is there and process is there and output also will be there, right? But in that kind of process, we have to take some decisions. What to produce, what we are going to produce. As an example, if you own by baker, then you have to decide what we are going to produce. Whether you are going to produce cake or bun or bread or any other biscuit or any other. You have to take the decisions. Okay. The decisions belong to the society, isn't it? Yes. If you are passing festival time period, something like that, Sinhala, Hindu, New Year, then you have to focus on cake. Because the selling quantity of the cakes during this kind of festival time period, it will be increased. Don't try to produce breads and bun. Try to produce cakes during that kind of period. You can earn money. Okay. What to produce? It is focus on the self-interest. It is focus on the demand. It is focus on the preference of the consumers. It is focus on the societal needs. Then you can take the decisions. So when you are going to actively participate this kind of process, I mean production process, you have to find the solutions that kind of problems. What to produce and how to produce. How to produce. How to produce mean what kind of technology you are going to use. What kind of technology you are going to use to produce goods and services. What kind of technology you are going to use related to the production. That is what we are going to identify in here. This is, we call that, you can use manual labor. You can use manual labor to produce cake, isn't it? Yes. Mixing, baking, each and everything can be done by using labors. Labor means mentally and physical effort from the workers. We call as labor. And also you can use machineries, equipments. We call, commonly we call capital, which are you going to use machineries and equipments, buildings, each and everything belong to the capital. We can use technology. As an example, if you can identify automobile industry in Japan, currently they are going to use machineries robotics to produce vehicles in Japanese economy. Okay. They are focusing on that part. Even in the services provided by this restaurant, there will be robots. They are serving dishes and foods for the customers. We call it machinery. That is how they are going to produce services and goods. Their technology is going to be machineries. Unfortunately, in this country, we are not developed something like that. Thoroughly, we are going to use manual labor to produce goods and services, isn't it? Yes. When we are going to discuss about any kind of productions, the major thing is labor. Major thing is labor. We are going to focus on the labor. Yes. And last problems, we have to find the solutions related to the productions. How much to produce? If you are going to produce cake, how much? How much? Hmm? 30 kilo or 50 kilo? If you are going to produce bread, 200 beds or 500 beds. How you can decide it? Based on the demand. Based on the demand. If market demand or consumer demand, collection of the consumer demand, forecast as 20 kilogram of cake will be here during the festival time period. Okay, identified by the seller. So then we are going to produce cake related to that amount. Definitely you are going to produce 25 kilograms, maybe 20 kilograms. The amount can be identified, the amount can be decided related to the based on the market demand. So that means if you are going to produce goods and services, you have to consider about the market demand also to take the decision how much you are going to produce, what you are going to produce, how much you are going to produce, how you are going to produce it. So those are the main problems. Actually, this is not a question, it is a problem. You have to find the answers related to the production. This is the production. We call it is production. Actually, inside the production, there are activities. That is why we call collection of the activities considered as process. It is not a solo activity. It's not a solo activity. It is a collection of activity. It's a collection of activity. We are not going to focus on one activity. We are going to focus on collection of activities. That is why we call it production is a process. Production is a collection of activity. Okay. Finally, we are going to focus on how we can create the goods and services to satisfy the basic human needs by considering the wants. That is what we are focusing on here. That is what we are focusing on the subject of economics. Yes. We already discussed the meaning of the production. Okay. By considering the example. Okay, always try to identify the activities, try to identify the components on the subject of economics by using example. This is the easiest way. This is the easiest way to identify the things. Okay. If you are going to identify other things, if you are going to focus only about the theory, you cannot remind it because it is very hard to remind. If you can identify the theoretical framework by using an example, that is the easiest way to identify the, that is the easiest way to identify the basic things. That is very reasonable activity. It is easy to identify. That is why we are going to focus on it. It is easy to identify. So then I'm going to describe each and every component, each and every theoretical factors by using example, isn't it? Yes. I will use example for each and every component. Then your responsibility is take the example. Take the example in your mind. Describe the theories. Describe the process. Describe the activities. Describe the components by using example. This is the easiest way to understand the subject. This is the correct way to understand the subject. If you are going to focus only about the subject, you cannot understand it. You cannot identify it. The easiest way to understand this kind of components is by using example. This is the way. You have to identify those one. Okay. Then I will describe the second components. What is we call as consumption. Second components. First one is production. Second one is consumption. Now we are going to focus on consumption. Consumption. You also consume, isn't it? Yes. You are going to use goods and services to satisfy the basic human needs and wants. Then we can recognize you also as a consumer. Okay. I will break down this one and I will go to the LMS. Okay, now we are going to focus on the consumption. Well, what do you mean by the consumption? Okay, consumption always consider about the using the goods and services. Using goods and services. Why we are going to use goods and services? We are going to use goods and services to satisfy the basic needs. To satisfy the basic needs. Okay. Actually, using mean consumption. Okay, sometimes you identify, just consider about the picture, frame picture, buying from the boutique, any kind of, and you are going to show that picture by using words. So then it will be a use. How you can say that you are going to use that electronic fan? Okay. Take the wind power from this particular electronic commodity. So how you can say that you are going to use that rice or kottu, something like that? It is also consumption. In here, you are going to consume that one. I mean, you are going to eat that. It also considered as using. So then now you can identify consumption can be identified as different way. Different type of consumption will be there. Okay. It is not only about the eating. So just consider about the vehicle consumption. That means you are going to take the transportation by using a vehicle. It also we can identify as consumption. Okay, different ways related to the consumption. It is belong to the consumption. Okay. So then consumption refers to use good and services. If it is tangible things, it can be identified as good. If it is intangible things, it must be services. What are the examples for the services? Service provided by the health sector. Okay. If you are feeling or suffering from any kind of diseases, you can take some advices and medicines from the health sector. It can recognize as a services. Okay. If you're in a trouble related to the legal, so you are going to take some advice from the lawyers. So it also will be a services. Okay. There's nothing to touch. There's nothing to physical things. It is intangible, but we are going to recognize it as a services. So then what about the services provided by the teachers? It is also intangible. You cannot count down it. You cannot measure the amount. You cannot measure the amount how much I am going to teach this person. Teach me 20% of the economics. You cannot say something like that because it is intangible. So this is a major components related to the services. Okay, but definitely you can identify the goods. Goods are tangible. It is physical things. As an example, just consider about the foods. It is tangible, isn't it? Yes, it is tangible. You can use it. You can consume it without any hesitations. Yes, it is very easy to identify that. By consuming all those tangible, you can satisfy the basic human needs and wants, isn't it? Yes. You can use it. It is very easy to identify. So whether it is belong to the tangible or intangible or good and services, you are going to use all those good and services to satisfy the individual needs and wants. That is why it say that services, good and services by individuals or groups to satisfy them, their needs and wants. But in economic subject, we are going to studies related to the consumption, the behavior of consumer, preference of the consumers, what they expect from the consumption. The behavior of the consumptions also will be one of the major factors we have to concern related to the subject of economics. As an example, if the price of the certain commodity increase, what happened to the quantity demand? Quantity demand can be reduced. If the price of the certain commodity reduce, what happened to the quantity demand? It can be increased. Now you can develop the theory. What is the negative relationship between consumption? The negative relationship between price and consumption. Okay. That means when the price increase, consumption goes to decrease. When the price decrease, consumption goes to increase. The negative relationship between price and demand can be seen here. We call it theory of demand. Okay, later you can identify those theories. Later, you can easily identify all those things. Okay, we call it theory of demand, the negative relationship. When other things are remaining constant, okay, the relationship between price, and quantity demand will be, yes, negative, Okay. So those are the things which we are going to discuss in here. Okay. Right. I think it's a trouble in here. Right. Sorry. Now you can see the screen. Yes. Right. Related to that consumption, we have to focus on the consumer behavior and the preference. Preference of the consumers can be changed one consumer to another consumer. Just consider about the religions and the environmental factor. If anyone live in upcountry, hills, rural area, so then their consumption pattern can be changed comparing to the area as Jaffna and Vaunia or something like that area. Yes, their preference can be changed because it is driven by the environmental factor. Temperature. Current change in the temperature, environmental factors, the consumption pattern, and consumption equipments and other things, especially clothes and other things, can be changed. So then now you can identify the preference of the consumers can be changed one consumer to another consumer. There are many kind of determinants behind that one. Religions and environmental factor, cultural factors, beliefs, and everything belong to that. How prices affect to buying decisions. You have to focus on that one also. If the price of the certain commodity, just consider 20 rupees, they are going to purchase quantity 100 commodities. So now they are spending on this amount on that particular commodity. But suddenly price of the commodity increased to 40 rupees. Then what they are going to do? They are going to reduce the consumption into 50. Same spending. But what happened to the consumption? Consumption reduced. So this is the buying decisions. According to changing the factors, price and other things, they are going to change their decisions. That is what we call as decision change related to the prices. Okay, we can change that particular subject into other things also. If income of the consumer change, what happened to the buying decisions? If choice change, what happened to the buying decision? If government taxes and subsidies change, what happened to the buying decision? If number of consumers change, what happened to the buying decisions? If other factors change, society, culture, other factors change, what happened to the buying decisions? Those are very important factors. We have to discuss on those. Okay. Utility satisfaction. Gain from the consumption. Okay. As an example, if you are in a thirsty, you are going to consume. So you are going to drink cup of water. What happened to your thirsty level? Your thirsty level going to be reduced. That's the meaning of satisfaction. If you are in a hunger, you are going to consume that particular any kind of foods. Then the hunger must be reduced. We call it satisfaction. Okay. It's also one of the major satisfaction. So people try to consume goods and services by expecting satisfaction. We call it utility. In economics, word for the satisfaction is utility. If there is no any utility from the commodity, we are not going to use that one. If the utility level of the consumption commodity is a high level, we are going to purchase it. The gaining from the consumption of any kind of commodity we call as utility. That is what we are going to expect from the commodities. Okay, as an example in your tutorial, page number 3, they're describing about the utility or consumption. Example, a university student choose to spend their pocket money on a data package instead for sacrifice of dining out based on their preference for online study accesses. Because this person, this particular student, need to access online studies. So then they have to sacrifice something for that particular purposes. That we call as consumption. Because the utility of the online study is in a high level comparing to the dining out. That is why he is going to spend on the money on the online study. Not for the others. Not for the others. That is what we are expecting in this particular sample. Okay. You can read the tutorial carefully, and it is easy to identify the components of the. Okay. Right. Now we can move to the next one. What is distribution? It is distribution. Distribution refers to how to income and good produce are shared among the individual and group of the society. Okay. If there is no distribution, you cannot join the Zoom meeting, isn't it? Because you are using some devices, isn't it? Maybe laptop, maybe mobile devices, or maybe desktop. Each and everything made in China, isn't it? Yes. Whether this company belong to the America or any company, it's made in China. So China made many electronic items, devices. Because of the distribution, we can consume it. Yes. That is why I say that if there is no if there is no distribution, you cannot join the meeting. Isn't it? The service provided by the mobile services, dial-up or mobile or any kind of thing. Devices provided by the any other countries. It is important for commodities, important goods. Because of this distribution, you can join. Other things also similar. Okay. As a earner, as a businessman, you can earn money, but you have to pay for the production factors. If you are using labor, you have to pay for the labor. We call it wage and salaries. As a businessman, you have to pay for the land. We call it rent. As a businessman, you have to pay for the capital. We call it interest rate. So then this kind of payment will decide the income distributions. Income distribution of the society. Income distribution of the society. Because according to that one, the income of the businessmen can be shared among individuals and groups in the society. That is why government try to provide job opportunities for the society to share the income of the government among the individual and among the society. Okay. The inequality of the wealth also will be decided according to that particular activity. Some countries distribution of the wealth and income in a high level. Okay. I mean fair distribution. Some countries consider as developing countries, something like Sri Lanka. The income and wealth distribution among the people and society, it is unfair. We call it inequality. Inequality distributions of income and wealth. That is why we are suffering from the society. As a societal member, that is how we are going to suffer. It is not fair situation. Okay. It is one of the major situation. Okay. And also government redistribute the policies like taxes and subsidies. Why government impose taxes? Why? Government need to recorrect that inequality, income and wealth distribution among the people. That is why government intervention to the market. Okay. Government taking taxes from the organizations, firms, and individuals who are earning bit of a high level of income. This taxes earning will be a government income. So then government spending that money, that taxes as income as a subsidies for the firms and individuals. As example, government impose taxes. Person who earn more than 150,000 rupees in a month, they have to pay. Okay, that income used to provide subsidies for the paddy producer, paddy farmer in Sri Lanka, for the fertilizer subsidy. This is how government can intervention to the market activity to share the income and wealth in fair manner, to share the income and wealth in equal manner. That is how government can intervention to the market. So they distribute, not only consider about the commodity distribution, it involved to the distribute the income in fair manner. So that is why we say that distribution refers to how income and good mean commodities, how income and good produce share among the individual and group in the society in fair manner. If it is not fair, I mean, inequality distribution of the wealth always create different type of problems in the society. There must be two types of classes in the society. First one is rich classes and poor classes. So always there must be conflict between those two types of people. It's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to anyone. That is why we are expecting something like that. Right? So, okay.